Hello and welcome to the AQA GCSE Physics Triple Standardisation video. My name is Thomas Finnegan and I'm just going to talk you through the paper 1 from 2024. And this is height here only. Okay, so this session follows this process. So I'm going to share a high tariff question with you. There'll be 4 in total. The questions are all in the packs which have been released with this video, so just make sure you have your pack with you. If you're working in a team, time yourself marking and then discuss your marking with the team. Following that, I will tell you how many marks were awarded in the summer and what the marks were awarded for, giving you any insights that might help you out with the marking process. We repeat this cycle once more for the same high tariff question, and then we'll move on to the next question. The objectives are to review the summer 2024 student responses. It's an opportunity to compare your marking with that of others. You gain a deeper understanding of the mark scheme and its application. It will improve department consistency in marking and assessment. It will enhance accuracy in student forecasting and target setting. Here's our general marking guidance that we advise you to use so you can improve the marking of mock examinations. Read the examiner's report and annotate your mark scheme. This is really good practice and it helps with your teaching and learning as well. Complete the standardization training that you're currently going through. Try not to know which student you're marking the script for to avoid any bias. Mark high tariff questions first and mark these in blocks. So for example, you might find that question 3.1 and this is the 6 marker. It would be better to answer that question or mark that question in a block, and then you can get a whole class analytic view of where students have gone wrong. It also helps you as well. It's less cognitive load on you whilst you're marking. So here's our first question. What I'd like you to do is, using a red pen on your mark book, I would like you to have a go at marking this question. On this right-hand side, you'll see the mark scheme. The mark scheme also gives the levels, and I've also given some examiner's commentary. So the examiner commentary breaks it down a little bit easier to understand, so you can see what a level 1, 2, and 3 answer would require. So this is worth 6 marks. So give yourself about 3 minutes, pause the video, and then have a go at marking. If you're with another person doing this, have a discussion for 1 or 2 minutes. Play the video again, and I'll go through the answers. Okay, so pause your video. Okay, welcome back. So with this question, it's really important that you look out for the fact that the student is varying the length of wire. Without varying the length of wire, you can't actually get a level 2 response. So that's the first thing you want to look out for. When marking a 6 marker, it's best practice to read the question and then think of the level that the question is going to be, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, and then assign the mark afterwards. So the examiner's commentary on this, which I've provided, which will be available to you, will help you with that process as well. So there's no indication in this question here that the student has varied the length, okay? So this part of the 4th bullet point says there's a single length of wire. There's no mention of the length being varied, so this limits the answer to level 1. They've also said to use a meter ruler, so you can award this question 2 marks. Okay, next question. So again, same thing. Pause the video after I finish speaking, mark it with your red pen, then discuss with the person next to you or in the team what you think the mark will be, and then unpause the video and have a go and listen to the instructions to see where you went wrong or what you did right. So if you pause the video. Okay, so for this question, there are lots of marking points here. You can see that the student has clearly talked about varying the length. They've also talked that you can measure potential difference in current at each length as well. Also, they've linked the equipment to the measurements, The interval has been given for changing the length of wire, and the correct equation has been stated. So this is a level 3 response, and it's also worth 6 marks. So remember, a level 1 response is if they've talked about varying the length of wire and how they would measure the length of wire as well. A level 2 answer needs to make reference to that varying the length of wire, but also it needs to talk about the measurements needed, current and potential difference. Or it can say about the equipment needed, a voltmeter and ammeter. But for level 3, they have to make a link between the voltmeter and ammeter, being for the voltmeter for potential difference, the ammeter for current. And if they state that link, they can then move on to a level 3 response. And what you're then looking out for is any additional details that they may have provided. So in this question, the student has talked about measuring resistance. They've provided the right equation. They've talked about repeating the experiment at different lengths of wire. And they've also talked about recording the results of current and potential difference in a table. So it's a level 3 response, and it was awarded 6 marks in the summer. Okay, on to our next question. So this is question 1.3. For this question, it was really useful to read the examiner commentary because for a level 2 answer, you need to show a relevant calculation. Have a little read of the commentary, have a go at marking the answer, give yourself about 2 minutes, discuss with the person next to you for a minute, and I would say you can pause the video right now. Okay, like I said before, the examiner's commentary really helps a lot with this one. Calculations which just state differences aren't sufficient to get a level 2. So for example, in this question here, the student has talked about method A having 33,110 more energy stored per 100 kilograms. This is just the difference between method A and method B, and it's not a sufficient calculation from the mark scheme. It's the same with the 15% more, it's just the difference between the percentage stored energy wasted, or if we take away 25. So they have made relevant comparisons, but they haven't made relevant or sufficient level 2 calculations. So this is why the students has only been scored 2 marks. Okay, with that in mind, have a think about this next question. So there was some of the text was missing from the screenshot, so I've just typed it in. So the student's response can be seen on the left. Again, give yourself some time to discuss it with the person next to you after you've finished, and you can pause the video now. Okay, so for this question, the student has made a simple comparison, but then they've used the calculation using the data to make it a level 2 response. So you can see there that the calculation uses the data from above, and the mark scheme would also allow us to just basically round that value up, because if you actually do the calculation, it's 68.5714, so saying that it's 68 times bigger is sufficient. AQA would also allow a student just to say it's more than 60 times bigger. This is then repeated with the same idea at the bottom. Okay, so they make a level 1 comparison, but they do back that up with a level 2 calculation, which is why this student was awarded 4 marks in the summer. So remember, with this question, it's really important to look straight away for the calculation and just check, is that calculation just calculating the difference, or is it calculating something from the mark scheme? And if it's just calculating the difference, it's not going to be sufficient to get a level 2 answer or mark. Okay, on to our next question. This is 6.2, so this is our 6 mark multi-step equation question. So with this question, only 14% in the summer actually gained full marks. So there's a couple of common mistakes that you want to look out for when marking this. Again, on the right-hand side is the mark scheme. If you give yourself about 2 minutes to mark this question and discuss with the person next to you, and then unpause the video so we can go over it together. So if you pause the video now. Okay, so with this question, the majority of students miss marking point 2 and marking point 3. So that's what happens here. Okay, it's really important to have a look at the allow section, the extra information, because lots of students will read the statements which says Before the pod is released, the extension of each of the two bungee cords is 8 meters. So you got lots of students with double the 8 meters, or they might double the 635 for the spring constant, okay? So marking point 2 does allow students to put that substitution in, but for marking point 1 does allow for substitution, sorry, but marking point 2 has to be 23,520 joules. Okay, it has to be that. It's no error carried forward, so no marking point 2 is awarded here, or marking point 3 as well. So they have to do the 23,520 joules, and then they must double that answer. You can have an error carried forward for the marking point 4, so that was allowed in this question here. The students has then substituted that into the GPE equation. They've then rearranged it for marking point 5, and the 40 mark, if their answer of 40 gives the marking point 6. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question of this. So students scored 4 marks. So here's 6.2 again. Again, pause the video, give yourself 2 minutes to mark it, have a discussion with the person next to you, and then unpause the video. You want to pause now? Okay, so with this question here, we actually have the most common incorrect answer that was scored in the summer. So most pupils in the summer would write 10 meters. So what would happen is they would calculate the elastic potential energy to be 223,520 joules, but they wouldn't score marking point 3 because they'd forget to double it. So no marking point 3 because the value wasn't doubled here. They substituted in to get marking point 4, rearranged for marking point 5, to finally get marking point 6. And like I said, that was a really common error that was found in summer. Okay, on to our last question. Okay, so this is a difficult question for students, and it's also a question that you need to be wary of when it comes to moderation with other teachers who might not be in the standardization, because students have to make a reference to a specified time period when they're talking about the frequency of collisions. So it's really important that they do that. This year, that was a common problem from the examiner report, and it was also a common problem the year before as well. So it's only a 3-mark question. So if you give yourself 1 minute to answer this question, have a little read through the mark scheme, discuss it with the person next to you, and then I'll go over the answers. If you'd like to pause now. Okay, so like I said before, students must refer to a common time period. Must refer to a time period or specified time period. So they got marking point 1 because they clearly stated that the particles are closer together. But then they said this means that there are more frequent collisions between particles exerting a greater force. Now, they have actually specified the time period there with the reference to frequent collisions, but they've said between the particles. So you also need to look out for, are they being clear that the particles are colliding against the walls? It needs to be explicit. So the air particles must collide against the walls, and we have to refer to the frequency of that collision. Okay, so in this answer, it's not clear that the particles are colliding with the walls of the syringe, so not marking point 2, and no marking point 3 either. It was quite common in the summer to only award 1 mark for this question. Here's our last one. So have a little read of this one. Give yourself about a minute to mark it, discuss it with the person next to you, and then unpause the video. If you'd like to pause now. Okay, so this is a question that was used to try and catch out, or not catch out, but trying to reiterate the standardization by AQA in the summer. They were very strict about marking point 1. So it says for the first sentence, it pushed all the air particles into a smaller space and not made an explicit reference to the particles being closer together. So marking point 1 was not awarded. In this question here, they have got marking point 2 because they've referred to a higher rate of collisions, which is acceptable. Instead of saying a frequency of collisions, you can have a higher rate, or you can say more collisions per second, or more frequent collisions. That is absolutely acceptable. Again, still no marking point 3, so this was scored 1 mark in the summer. Just remember, smaller space doesn't necessarily mean closer together. The particles were closer together. Okay, so thank you for listening to that. If you want to have further practice on this, you can go through the remainder of the slides and have a go at marking them. And then if you look at the actual main slide that comes with this PowerPoint, with this presentation, sorry, it does explain why the student got the mark that they were awarded. Okay, so there are further examples of each question attached to the slides. Thank you for listening.